Well, thank you very much. And having been upstaged last week by the snooker, well, here we are, right on cue. And this afternoon we'll be meeting that king of conservation and indeed conversation, David Bellamy, and discovering a new side to the multi-talented Michael Palin. Then our guest critics are Nigel Havers and Maureen Lipman. And something tells me something's going to happen tonight with a bit of luck, because we'll be hearing from that lovely lady, Cilla Black. But that's all later in the show, and without keeping you back any further, I'd like you to meet my first guests. Now, two fearless crime fighters who are currently making a very big impact on the small screen in Dempsey and Makepeace. So it's Glynis Barber and Michael Brandon. Considering the two of you have been on this whirlwind tour of the United States promoting Dempsey and Makepeace, you're looking very fit. When you were there, I mean, did you take the chance, Michael, of showing Glynis, for example, your New York, you know, the old homestead, where you lived, all of that?
Yes, he did. In New York, we were unbelievably busy. We were doing 9 interviews a day, and then he said, "Oh, I've got these friends you must meet." And we were out till 4 o'clock in the morning.
I got a lot of friends in New York.
Of course, there's this great similarity, isn't there, between your background and the role you play as Dempsey?
No, I thought it was more like Makepeace, actually.
No, I'm more like Dempsey. Yeah.
Of course, as you rightly say, I mean, Glynis comes from this very posh background, and that's very much Harriet Makepeace. But I mean, with all the gunslinging and all the rough tumble stuff that you had to do, I mean, how much training did you have to have for that?
Well, none. I mean, they never give you any training. You're always just thrown into these things.
But you obviously have to do all this activist stuff, don't you? All the physical bit?
Yes, well, yes, a lot. It's quite nice, actually, because, you know, you have one day of filming in the SI-10 office where you have a lot of dialogue, and then you'll have one day where you don't say a thing. You're sort of running, leaping off buildings and things, and it makes quite a nice change, actually.
So you mean you could always do that? You didn't have to have any training for that?
No, I could always leap off a building.
Do you feel, actually, that you could handle yourself much better these days? I mean, as a female, if you're in a tough situation.
Well, do you know, sometimes I feel Makepeace takes me over. I've been in a couple... Because I'm a coward. I mean, an absolute coward. But I've been in a few situations where I've marched up to people and demanded to know what they're doing. I think, what am I doing? You know, I said, "Excuse me, but, you know, what are you doing here and how long are you going to be here?" I said to somebody sitting outside my house, thinking it was the press. And they answered me. They reacted like I was a policewoman.
Let's have a look at the pair of you really in action. This goes back quite early on in the series, and it's probably all a day's work to you, but it looks very dangerous stuff to me. Quite frightening to do, was it?
It was a little bit, because that was on the top of a very old, shaky building.
Yeah, they had to drag me out of the door because I hate heights.
Yeah. And, in fact, they blew that building up in the end. And it wasn't very stable. It was very high. And we were sort of fighting on the ledge, so it was a little shaky.
How many of these stunts do you like to do yourselves?
Well, there was one where I had to ride a horse into SI-10. And the hallway was about 3 foot wide, the doorway about the same, and this horse didn't want to be there. And, you know, when you see that look in a horse's eyes, you know, and it's like he's going to freak out any second, and nobody knew what to do about this, and there was no way to double it up, and they couldn't have a guy holding onto the horse because you would see him in the shot. And, but I spent time with horses, and I felt like I'll have a talk with the horse. And, you know, I was just hoping he was hearing me.
Anything rather than talk to me.
Yeah. And it worked out okay, you know, but, you know, with a wild animal, I mean, it wasn't wild, but I mean, like, in a situation with a whole camera crew and you know, in a situation where there was nothing you could protect yourself with,
So
you know.
dangerous enough.
Yeah.
Actually, thinking of some of the locations that you film in and around London, I mean, they're not exactly the best of locations, the most salubrious. And on a lot of occasions, the weather is very much against you here, isn't it, in this country?
Well, I think the weather's much against everybody here.
Well, it's not much fun, you know, filming outside in London in the winter.
And you ever having to lie, Glynis, in like really wet surroundings or wet circumstances?
Oh, yes, it's always wet. You know, it's dry as...
Well, we did one. She was laying there. She had to lay on the ground, and it was raining and it was cold, but we had to pretend it wasn't, you know what I mean? Because you couldn't see the rain and all, and she was crying.
I was not.
You were crying.
Crying. I was, you know, a little upset, but I wasn't crying.
She was upset.
She was upset.
You were crying. The paper that I was crying. It was unbelievable.
That's it. I must have read it in the paper.
It was extremely cold and I was shivering.
But you got the scene done in the end anyway.
Yes, we did, yeah.
Because this series is such a success now, would you find when you are filming that you gather around you a great crowd of people?
We always seem to be near a school. And we get absolutely mobbed, you know, by 200 children at a time.
They come right out of the school, and they just come right up to the set, and like you see the teachers trying to drag these kids back into the schools, you know. But pretty soon they get into it, and everybody's standing around, and they're great though, because you say, listen, we got to film here, and like, quiet! You know, and everybody just settles down, you know, and we get
And Harriet goes with her toffee nose in the air, you know. Soon silences the whole lot.
Hide. These kids terrify me.
Well, again, because of the series, it looks as if you're going to stay in this country. I mean, pretty well make London your home.
Well, doing this tour, you know, we were all over the place, bouncing around the cities, and I was so tired at the end of it, and I'm tired of talking about it, you know, I just wanted to go home. And that was the first time I realized I thought of London as that. So it was kind of a big change.
So you're going to buy a house here?
I'm looking around.
Because your flat was previously occupied by a few rather famous gentlemen.
Yeah, there was the first place that I lived in when I came here, I got because Richard Gere's a friend, and he was staying there, and before him, I think, was Warren Beatty. So, yeah, if you got a wrong number, it didn't matter.
What, you got all their girls? You made a reference to the press hounding you. What do they do? Do they lie in wait for you as you come home?
Well, yes. I mean, it's not quite so bad at the moment, but there was one period where they literally were camped outside my home for about a month. And it was really unbearable because, you know, and also as you'd walk in, the phone would ring, the doorbell would be going, and they'd be there. And you just have no privacy. And then you go to work, and then you're sort of getting mobbed by these children. And they used to follow me to work as well. Then if you go out in the evening, they follow you. And there was just no moment of the day when I had any privacy or any space. And
But at the beginning, there were all these reports in the papers that the two of you hated each other. You know, I hate him, you know, I loathe him on set and all of that. How did that build up initially?
well, I don't know that. Was that in the press?
There was an article. No, there was no. There was a tacky article that said how much I hated her and all this kind of stuff.
Which was
and it was
true.
an exclusive. And yeah, but I never said it to the press.
Well, you must have said it to someone.
So that was just simply one report?
Well, basically, it was this one guy who made up a thing, said he had an exclusive interview that I never gave. I never even met the guy, and you know, it was all baloney.
Then the last one I read said you were going to get married.
Oh, yes, I read that one, yes.
Do you know, our car breaks down, right? So I was trying to fix it. I was pulling the carburetor, you know, apart a little bit, and I look up, and there must have been about 30 people standing. It was by the Savoy Hotel, and they were all standing there, and like getting paper. Everybody's looking for paper and pen, and standing there for cameras and everything like that. And it was a whole mob. And somebody says, "Are you getting married?" I said, "I'm fixing the car." You know, it's amazing, isn't that article?
And Michael, are you getting married?
No?
No.
Michael, are you getting married?
Glynis Barber and Michael Brandon.